Hey everyone, this is Chris and James. You're listening to the How Octane Dads podcast. How Octane Dads is about fast cars, racing, and living that dad life. It's tough out there being a dad and still trying to find time for your hot rod and all your projects. Each week we'll be talking about current events in the automotive and racing world, updates on our projects, and struggles and challenges of being a father in today's day. So kick up your feet and relax for the next little bit. You've earned it.
Hey guys, before we get started on episode 2, we wanted to take a second and give a huge thank you to everybody who listened to episode 1 and has provided such great feedback. We're having a ton of fun making these, and we're looking forward to making many more. If you haven't already, go join our Facebook group. There you can leave comments, suggestions, and things you want to hear about in the future. And of course, go like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast apps. Now, let's get started on episode 2.
Somebody's TikToking me. China. I don't normally get on TikTok a whole lot. It says my daily average is 8 minutes. Like, I literally have hundreds of messages. And, like, I'll go through binges, and then I'll go through, like, you can see. That's not going to show it. But it says 99. I forgot.
Mine's always like that. People will send me, and they'll be like, man, I'm going to stop sending you stuff on TikTok. You don't ever watch them. And then there'll be a day I'll watch all of them. Then I might not open it for 4 or 5 days. Yeah.
And then I'll send them to everybody. And they're like, what were you? I could tell you were on TikTok last night. And be like, yep, enjoy it because you won't see it again for 6 months.
Right.
My uncle is kind of what got me into cars when I was a kid. He had a big fascination with Knight Rider. And, you know, he grew up in that generation. He's a big computer nerd. That's all he's done is ever work on computers his whole life. Yeah. And he was really big into Knight Rider. And I remember when I was a kid, a few times watching Smokey and the Bandit with him. And
oh yeah,
especially the original one. And I just, the one scene I always remember asking him, you know, right when he's at the top of the hill and he does that burnout, and then he comes down the bank and goes down through the river, and like you see the water coming up through the shaker on the hood and everything, and I'm like, I remember asking him, like, how can that car do that, but not these cop cars? Well, my uncle's like, it's because it's a Pontiac. That's why.
Pontiac
he's like,
magic.
Well, yeah, he's like, well, they got that thing on top that sucks air from the back, so that way it's not getting water down in there. And I'm like, these cars are amazing. And, you know, I don't know if it was around that time or it might have been right before, but he bought I think it was in 93. In 93, he bought a 92 Firebird. He bought it. It had won over before him, and it had super low miles, but it was a base model, non-ground effect, 3.1 liter V6 automatic, hard top Firebird with the Banshee front end and back end, non-ground effects, and it had black interior, red, and I love that car. I mean, now I'm like, we want a 3.1 car, but I mean, I love that car. And I remember riding with him. I'd be cruising along. He got like every now and then pop it up in neutral and be like, wham wham. Now I think about it, I had a 3.8 car, and I'm like, man, they sound like garbage. But I mean, I remembered it. And then I remember when I started getting close to driving, I remember like Dad telling me about an Impala he had when he was younger, and he had done stuff to it. I remember like getting on, it was like classic car website, and I was always looking for like Firebirds and Impalas and this off the wall shit that like my parents told me about. And like we had full size Broncos when I was a kid too, and I loved them full size Broncos. And so I was looking for those all the time, but I wanted a car, and I really wanted a Firebird. Then, you know, I got into Smokey and the Bandit, and I've watched that hundreds of times. Back when they had the 40th anniversary, back in 2017, me and a local theater, played the movie for the 40th anniversary. So we went and bought tickets, and him and his wife went and watched it together. And Mom bought me a T-shirt and all that with whatnot on it. But anyways, I remember we were in high school and I was looking, and a good friend of mine, I still talk to quite a bit today. He's a Ford guy. He had bought a 69 Mach 1. That was his first car. He still has it. But he told me one day, he was like, man, up on this, you know, road, they've got a white Firebird or white Camaro back there for sale. And I'm like, okay. So like I talked my mom and all, let's drive us back there. and we saw it from the road, and I'm like, oh man. We pulled. I mean, it was like way up in the guy's driveway, right up by his house, and he had one of them long ass driveways. We got up there, and it had the bird on the hood and everything. I'm like, oh man, I gotta have this. I went and looked at it, and we took pictures of it and sent them to my uncle. My uncle ended up helping me get the car, but he was against it. He was like, man, he goes, you need something newer. You need something with less miles. I'm like, no, I gotta have this. So I had been working, doing sports and all that mess. I mean, it was already wore out when I got it. It had 203,000 miles on it.
Huh.
LG4. But I mean, I learned a lot, and then over the years, I remember even right before I got that car, always looking up like third gen website, and there was like I think like a three, it was a third gen, but it was like 3rdgen.com, and then they had maybe that was a .net, and then later I found thirdgen.org. I creeped on there for years, and then like I think it was, I have to look back on there, but it was like a year or two after I got my car, I think, before I actually signed up on the page. Got on thirdgen.org, followed a lot, and then I think it was my junior or senior year in high school, I killed the engine. So
As one
yeah,
does.
well, I mean, hell, I had the car about a little over a year and put like 12,000 miles on it, and as like a junior in high school,
Yeah.
and I didn't have where to be. We were just on the roads all the time, and it was hard miles. But I mean, so the car had over 200,000 miles on it. So this was like 2004, and well, I blew it up, and I bought another engine from a local friend of mine that was running in his car. But I'm like, I'm gonna at least check it out. Well, then I checked it out, and it was like missing some skirts off a couple of the pistons and a bunch of dumb shit. And I'm like, so we ended up rebuilding that one, and that was actually 305 high output from an 84 Trans Am. It was the L69.
Mm-hmm.
And now looking back, that buddy's car, so it was an L69 T-top car, 5 speed, had 373 posi. It had that dual snorkel intake. He had the Banks catback on it, and
Man.
all the stuff that made, now looking back, all that stuff that people are like sought after, he trashed every bit of it. And I'm like, I even remember then, like he offered me his like snorkel and all, and I'm like, and then he was like, no, I don't think I'll keep it. And I was like, oh no, you want? I'm like, dude, I'm good. I don't want it. And now I'm like, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't need it, but it'd be kind of neat to have, or somebody would need it a lot more than I would.
Sure.
But I mean, I don't know. But anyway, so I built this engine, and I was like looking at videos, like on, it wasn't even YouTube yet. It was like whatever, some off the wall websites. I would like, search stuff like on MSN Messenger, not Messenger, MSN search engines,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was.
Before the days of Google, even, really.
Yeah. And I think it might have been Google, might have just been coming around, but like I
Yeah,
remember
it
we
would've
had
been.
like it was like Yahoo or Ask Jeeves and all that off the wall shit. Or like some of the people would post videos and pictures and whatnot on third gen. There would be like helps. But anyways, I would like look up camshaft specs just on the way they sounded. And that's kind of like how a lot of car guys get into it that really don't know as much. Like my dad was in cars, but not on the level where he could do a whole lot to them. I mean, he knows they're cool, likes, whatever. We never had any really rowdy hot rods and whatnot when I grew up. I remember, I'm like, all right, we looked around. I think we bought it on eBay. It was like a basic rebuild kit. And the camshaft that I ordered was a reproduction camshaft for the 350 horsepower 327. It was like a 222 duration, like 444 lift on like a 114. And I remember posting it up. And so like I bought that cam and was putting it, my intention was is I rebuilt the engine. Is it was I mean, just basically going to be an LG4. It had the 416 heads, or 413, 416 heads, whatever they were, and they were milled a little bit. They put the Z28 valve springs in them. And me and a local guy, there was another guy, probably in his 20s at the time, actually helped me. Somebody my mom knew him, their family. But he helped me put the engine together. While I was putting this engine together, it was like a stock engine, basically. Stock rebuild with a little bit better valve springs and a little bit better camshaft. Well, the camshaft was completely wrong to run on the third gen LG4 computer with a computer controlled quadrajet and the distributor. And like everybody tells anybody that gets into those cars and starts messing with them. And naturally, I didn't listen. And like I remember, you know, who this is kind of how brought us together, Matt Walton. And that's where he comes in. I can't remember all of his screen name. Was it NW Nova?
MW66 Nova was the one I remember.
Matt's a legend. We'll talk more about him in the future. But
King Mullet, the man himself.
yeah, I remember him posting. He's just like, "That's a garbage setup. It won't run." I mean, maybe not in such harsh words, but maybe I don't remember. But he's just like, "It's garbage. It's going to run like crap." Stock converter. Computer control quadrajet. That stupid ESC or whatever distributor that you had to unhook. And he's like, it's going to be a dog. It had 273 gears still in it, stock exhaust, like manifolds. Just all it was missing was a cat. Otherwise, it was stock. I mean, allegedly, it was missing the cat. But anyway, so I got it all together, and he was right. It ran like shit. And I fought so many issues. I ended up pulling rocker studs out of that motor. Most of it's just from inexperience, not knowing how to adjust the valves. And we'd have them either too tight, too loose. They would chatter. One chewed up a rocker stud, and then I had another one pull stud out because they were just too tight. Or then when the guy initially helped me put the engine together, I'm surprised we didn't fuck anything up. He was a big Ford guy, and he was basing off of I think it's the modified motors. And so those are similar. I think those are similar to like an LS where you just you torque them down and go. It's not like a small block Chevy. It's not an adjustable valve train.
Yeah, I think you're right.
What's that?
I said I think you're right.
Well, he was helping me, and he didn't. He hated Chevys. He's like fucking Chevrolet bullshit, whatever. And well, he was helping me, and I was in high school. I'd go over there and we'd do a little bit, and usually he wouldn't mess with it without me there. Well, one night he decided to get a whole bunch of shit done, which is fine. Well, he went through, we got it all together, got it in the car, and we could not get that thing to run. Come find out, he didn't ram all the rockers down all the way.
Tight as
and so all the valves, all the valves were open and whatnot. That's a big part of, we tried to like adjust the valve. He was learning with me, and he was just fighting with it just as much as I was. And but like I said, he was from the Ford background. I mean, I don't really know how much experience he had, in a lot of different stuff other than Fords or just like basic maintenance. But it took us a little bit. We got through it. As it went on, I fought it. I could never get it to run right. Eventually, I had the oil pickup fall off the engine, and I said, screw it, pulled it apart. Actually, before that happened, I ended up killing the 700 R4. And when I put it together, I jammed the torque converter in there wrong and fucked up the
pump or
like something or in the pump, and it just got to the point where we were out driving it one night and it had open headers and shit, dumb shit, riding around. It started smoking, and it was just pouring trans fluid out of the side of the trans, and it was like where the converter was, and it was awful. So I ended up pulling it apart and put a turbo 350 in it. I still could never get it to run quite. Well, I ended up pulling all the computer controlled stuff out, and I got it running better. And then I, lost the pickup or whatever, and so I decided, screw it, we'll pull it apart. And I actually tore it all the way apart, and I put the cam in it that Matt recommended, which back then it was like a Crane Blue Racer or something along those lines. It was a 214, 224, like 442, 465 on a 112. Or you can get it these days, like where I got it from was a Summit 1103 cam. And I ran it, I put it in that 305, and then I built a 350 late. Well, I had a 350 that I got later from actually another TGO member, Chris Eckerd.
Gotcha.
And we might get talk to him one day because he's had a lot of really crazy third gen builds back in the day. I don't know if you remember. He was the one that was building that Targa top car. That's a really old build. It's only if you look back on the thirdgen.org days, he was trying to build a Targa top, and then it later ended up just cutting the whole roof off and made a convertible.
You gotta love those ambitious guys because eventually they hit on something that actually helps all of us out.
Yeah, but somewhere along the line, later I had another third gen. I had some different wheels, and I was parting stuff out. And then I had a K10 that I put together, and the engine in it died, and I needed an engine for it. And he wanted my wheels, and he had just moved. Well, he was here in Virginia, there at Hampton Roads, and they were getting ready to move to Florida, which that's where he is today. And but he was originally from Ohio. Well, he had left a whole bunch of stuff up there at his friend buddy's shop. So me and a friend of mine drove all the way up there to Pennsylvania, Ohio border and got this engine. He completely trusted me to do this trade. Like, I drove up there, met his friend. We loaded this engine into my Suburban, drove it all the way back. And then 2 weeks after that, me and my wife drove all the way to Hampton because it was like 6 hours from me where we went to up in Poplar, Pennsylvania. And then where he lived in Hampton at the time was near where my grandmother and my mom grew up, about 3 hours from here. So then we drove down there, and I took him all the wheels. Super great that it worked out. Met somebody that I'll know forever now because of that. Something as silly as a $1,700 clapped out third gen has then brought me together with a bunch of people.
Yep.
And I mean, my kids love it. I had some family, like my uncles, try to get me to get rid of it for years now. He's like, "Oh, it's just garbage. You need to get rid of it." And I'm like, "I can't. I'm stuck with it. I'm committed."
Yep.
I mean, even if it is garbage, I agree it's garbage, but it's my garbage. And
Amen.
part of it for me, it's like I had an uncle that got me into these type of cars. He helped me get this car, and then I'm like, part of the reason I want to keep it is because of that. You don't have to hold on to something to remember somebody, but I mean, that's part of why I want to keep it. The kids love it, and that's what they think of when we go for rides. I don't know. My daughter, she claims it, and I told her it's a very long time before she can ever have that car because it'll kill her pretty quick, especially these days.
Oh yeah.
And I guess through the years, and Facebook and social media evolved, and ended up becoming friends with Matt on Facebook, and then there was a whole bunch of groups out there, and then there was a whole bunch of third groups, and there's a whole bunch of on there where it was just people posting nonsense, either garbage tech or just shit posting everything, which all of us love to shit post. I mean, memes are life. but I mean, there was a lot of really bad information that was circling out there, and it's part of, I think, what gives the third gen, second gen crowd, and any, people that are really into those era cars, that hillbilly, mullet vibe, mullet militia.
Yep.
A bunch of us ended up trolling all these groups pretty bad, to the point where a few of us had to make multiple Facebook accounts. Allegedly, these groups might have gotten trolled, everybody got blocked, and then eventually we're like, hey, Matt reached out one day. He's like, "Do you want to be? I'm thinking about starting a third gen group, and we'll really base it more so around tech, racing. Kind of. Well, at the beginning, we had some nonsense, but it's like kind of no nonsense. We rolled. I said, I'll be in, and so that was 2013. So we started that third gen group, and a lot of the guys that trolled with us rolled in, and then from the right off the rip, it was Matt Walter. Steve, can't pronounce your last name, Steve, so you're Steve. Hopefully we'll get to talk to Steve at September in LS Fest. He may not be a dad, but some call him daddy.
Some do.
After hours at LS Fest, there could be multiple people to call him daddy. But anyways, Steve's one of the OGs. He's been there OG from the get-go. thirdgen.org, he's got a lot of great information out there. Matt's always been known for he really tries to get the very best out of every combo he builds. Uh, and obviously times have changed. Technology's changed. Money. The longer people have cars, the more things they do. But as far as somebody still sticking with an all-motor car, I think he's great. Stick shift car. I'm in Virginia. Matt is from Georgia originally, and somewhere along the line, I can't remember exactly the time frame. I'm sure over the next few months, weeks, we'll get this in there at some point. But Matt moved to Maryland, and then we all become closer. And I've been to his house multiple times for like cookouts. We've had some third gen oriented events at his house. Um, Joe, that here lives in the area. He's actually another Malt Militia admin. He lives close to me. Um, he's a great paint body guy. But me and him drove up one weekend and took his car to Matt for Matt to put the cage in it. And then Kevin, we'll talk to him probably at LS Fest also. First time I met him was at Matt's house when Matt put Kevin's cage in. What's his name's kids were turning Matt's air conditioner off. uh, we'll have to get into that another day too. But
yeah, I hadn't heard that story.
Anyway, yeah, that might not need to be on there, so I don't know yet. But anyway, I guess that's kind of where you come in. I mean, how far? I mean, Matt was kind of from your area.
Yeah, about 30 minutes away.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, my dad was always, he always liked cars. He was big on, wrenching on things, but never like on, I guess, on the hot rodding side of things. We didn't have any crazy modified stuff, but growing up, I'll never forget, he had like a deep blue Malibu that he drove forever. And I mean, it had a 305 in it, of course it had the double hump heads, supposedly. And we used to go for rides in that car, man, and no seat belt, middle of the front seat. We had some really windy roads, and we would just go take rides. And so I always loved that car. And when I first started looking for a car, I didn't really know what I wanted, and I wasn't even really sold on buying like something with a V8. I just wanted something cool, and I was kind of getting, I guess, maybe down to the wire where there was a Pontiac Sunfire for sale close by. And I was like, look, Dad, it's a Pontiac. He looked at me. He was like, we're not getting that car. And within a week, he found my Trans Am. It was an 86, just like yours, but it was red with the silver ground effects. And, I mean, I was in love with it the minute I seen it. I had sold a dirt bike that I'd had since I was 12 for a little bit of money to go towards the car, And we actually got it from a paint and body guy, so it had like just been painted when I seen it.
Oh.
Had a lot of issues. Like, it was a very quick, I'm selling this car, paint job, salvage title car, the whole nine. But I think mine had 175, 180,000 miles on it. It had just the carmine red seats in them. Fabric was kind of saggy and whatever. But I still loved it. So we bought it, and I was 15 at the time, so had to look at it in the driveway every day, other than the times when I got to go driving. And about 3 or 4 months went by, and the body guy, I guess I don't know if he needed some money for another project or what he had going on, but he called my dad and he said, hey, I got those original seats out of that car that were the carmine red with the silver inside. He said, if you want to buy the original seats, I'll sell those back to you. And so my dad went and picked those up kind of as a birthday present for the next year. And so I got my original seats back, which was great because they were so much cooler. I think the side bolster was tore on them a little bit, but I mean, still to have the matching seats was killer.
Love to put those back in my car someday, or have a set of a more modern seat done and stitched in a fabric, either the kind of similar coloring. Doesn't have to be the same type of fabric, but I love that color.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, looking back, so my dad, having had the Malibu and all this, he was big on, keep it as original as you can. He didn't want to see anything radical done to it, engine swap, anything like that. I remember being on thirdgen.org just drooling over what everybody else was doing, because like it was even an argument about putting subframe connectors in my car because you had to drill holes in the floor. Like it was a whole thing. He's like, once you move out, you do whatever you want to it, but this is, and so, and looking back, like I know he was looking out for me. He didn't want to see me make a change to the car that I would regret later in wanting to keep it original because I had the original seats and all. But when you're a 16, 17-year-old kid, you don't know any better.
I wish that because I did a lot of shit to my car on the cosmetic end of it to where now I'm still having to pay for it. And I wish I wouldn't have messed with it and just wished I left it as it was instead of now I'm going to have to deal with it. More work for this guy.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely two sides of the coin, right? Because and somewhere in the middle probably would have been great because, like, I did want to do some stuff to my car. But I will say, Christmas rolled around. They had, Flowmaster exhaust put on it. Guy ran a full exhaust system on it. He definitely did not remove cat at the time when he did that. It was left. They had the exhaust done for me, and then my graduation gift, when I was 18, was the same guy that we bought the car from. He redid the paint job and kind of cut us a deal on it, and we got it painted again, and we recovered the seats. And if you've seen the pictures of it, it's got the bird embroidered on the headrest, so we had that done in the same silver stitching. So yeah, so I we did a little bit there. And then after that, I went to college and the car just kind of sat. I drove it for a little bit, but I went through several cars since then. I had a 2001, first I had a 2006 RSX Type S, little 4-cylinder, because gas was high and it was still a fun little car. Yeah, I love that car, man. But a Mustang caught my eye, and I don't know why, because I've never been a Ford guy. But it was a 2001 Bullet. And they only made so many of them in black. I think it was like 1,100 black ones, and it was like I could trade for it, and my payment would go down, and it was just like I want a V8, so I got it. And all the Bullets were 5-speeds, so I was able to. Which the RSX was a 6-speed, but so I'd been driving manual for a while and loved both of those cars, but always kept my Firebird, thankfully. And I will say, my dad, my granddad, my wife, all of them at one time or another convinced me not to sell that car, and I'm very glad I didn't, because once we had a house, when me and my wife had been together and the car just had the 305 in it, it was still running. I had rebuilt the Quadrajet a couple times. I don't know, it definitely went the right way, but I'm like counting turns on the screws to make sure I put it all back together just right. And I mean, it ran, so I'm counting it as a win. But once we had a house and a garage, I'll never forget Christmas. Right after, I now have my own garage. She bought me a Craftsman toolbox, just one of the roll around like cart toolboxes. I swear that's what sparked it, man. I was like, I'm shopping for LS engines. We're going to do the swap. And that's how I started doing it. It's like it gave me a little bit of confidence that, hey, I got a garage, I got a toolbox and some tools, and we're going to make it happen. And, so to backtrack a little bit, when I was in high school and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my car and kind of, maybe wanted to put a 350 in it, get a crate motor, I actually met up with Matt at his work. He had driven the white car, the white Camaro he had back then, and that's when it had the 305 in it that was running like 10s or something. I mean, it was it was some crazy rowdy combo. And so I met him at where he worked, and we hung out, on his break a little bit and talked. And then, I think I carried a Summit magazine around with me forever. But, working where I was working at Circuit City selling car stereos, I wasn't pulling enough to do a whole crate motor swap. And so I kind of just left it alone for years. And the car just stayed pretty well original. I just kept it running for a long while until I did the LS swap in it. But thankfully I've still got it, and now it's got the 6.0 LQ4 in it.
Well, and then so somewhere along the way, with the last decade that we've had Mullet Militia going, and that's kind of where we linked up.
Yep.
And we found out we had similar cars, kind of similar backstories. We both have whole litters of kids, and we both kind of seem to yearn for something different, something more, and here we are.
Yep.
Just kind of going to talk it all out. Maybe it's our own little therapy we need.
If I'm your therapist, we're in trouble.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, but
That was,
it'll be good. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about doing this for a while. Like I said, I remember talking with Matt back when he was talking about forming Mullet Militia because, and I'll let him tell it whenever we can get him to come hang out with us. All the iterations of what the names might have been, because there were quite a
yeah,
few that were tossed around. But yeah, I mean, Matt's a good guy, and he definitely, he wanted to make a group that give good advice, and make sure that the information that was there was good, and that people could find what they needed for their swap, or if they were keeping their car original, whatever it was. So yeah, and we linked up through there, and it's probably only been in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years that I've talked with like Steve and Kevin as much, but like you and Matt, I've been talking with you guys for years, and me and you were talking at LS Fest, like, man, it's a way for us to get to hang out more because we're states away, but also
right.
just, wanting to do something that, we can involve other people and talk about some of the things that maybe dads face when they don't get to do their hobbies as much because they're spending time providing, and the challenges that come with that, or just
Oh yeah.
talk about cool cars.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went to a little cruise in the other weekend at a local hot dog stand that was a benefit for a local car guy that had passed. And one of the guys there that I'm friends with, he's got a Subaru. And I know back in the days when I used to first start running around, it was all, oh, you fucking imports or whatever. But I mean, anyway, he's a great guy. And like he even told me, he's like, man, I need more like dad friends that are into cars to go do car stuff with. And I was like, man, do I have something for you? So,
Perfect.
uh, and I've had multiple people now since we've been talking about this from my area that are into motorcycles, or more some guys that are more into trucks, or I've got some Ford guys and some other F body guys, or even guys that are into other sorts of power sports like motorcycles, mini bikes. Uh, so I mean, yeah, over after a while, I think we can have a really good some conversations when we start adding guests. Later on, I will say I would like for us to try to stay out of some politics a little bit because that's just a whole nother can of worms.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll get into all sorts of things. Me and you talk quite a bit about like physical fitness, going to the gym, lifting weights.
Yep.
We've talked quite a bit about it. There's quite a few people that have similar interests here that I know that in the cars, really big into working out. Some of my friends in the European cars are really big into working out, so that'll be fun. We have maybe some BMW guys on here. That's another one that he may not be a dad, but many call him daddy. So, or we call him the legend, TM. But that'll be a fun one.
Yep.
So yeah, obviously I have to set up all this, but I mean, hopefully we can just do something, and if anything, we come out of this, it could be a just a good stress relief.
It is
a
that.
different way. Yeah, a different way for some dads to get together, or if you just want to kick back and throw us on while you're wrenching in the garage. I will say that's my favorite time to listen to a podcast is if I'm in the garage working on something, because I tend to not get up and switch songs or whatever. I'll just let it play, and I might miss some of it along the way, but you know excuse me, while I'm working, podcast is definitely the way to go. And
Yep. I had one play when I was on the treadmill earlier, and just trying not to die.
oh yeah, oh that sounds awful. I mean, I ran track. I'm not doing any running these days,
I'm walking,
but
incline walk. Ain't doing that
oh,
running stuff.
maybe we do some decline walk. But
There you go.
that reminds me, my wife sent me a video today of 5 years ago today was when I had my back surgery,
Wow, it's been
and she
5
sent me
years.
she sent me actually it might be longer than that. But anyway, she sent me a video where I was walking the driveway with a cane, like all leaning sideways. Yeah, it was pretty rough. I'll have to send you that. You can enter it in there if you want, or we can save it for a later date. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm walking up the driveway. Ah,
Add some funny sound effects to it. It'd be great.
yeah. I've got another clip of it that she sent me a while ago So it must have been she had two parts of it because I think it was a Snapchat video originally. And like the beginning of it, I'm walking off the street and I'm like, and I look up at her, I'm like, "Fuck you!" And then the clip she sent me today was like me walking more up the driveway beside her, and I'm like, on my whole body, I was walking like this because everything hurt. It was
Yeah.
awful. I couldn't drive my third gen in because I couldn't work the clutch. Well, actually, my left foot was fine. My right foot wasn't. I couldn't extend my right foot very well. So allegedly, I may have drove some with my left foot. So in Mexico, in theory,
Definitely in Mexico.
yeah,
Good deal. Well,
yeah,
I think, you know, if we can, you know, keep this going and have it out there and build a community of like-minded dads that just want to hang out and talk cars and, you know, fitness, whatever that is, we'll have a good community for sure.
well, absolutely. I think so too. I think we can come up with plenty of topics, and you know, I'm sure we can get a plethora of different ideas and topics as
Oh
far as, you
no,
know.
my camera died.
Uh-oh. See
We
it.
hit our hour.
Shit's good.